Commissioner Ross, whenever you're ready. You want a minute? So we do.
The sidewalk? No, not yet. So. Sure, go ahead.
Y'all ready? We'll give Commissioner Ross a minute to set up.
I don't believe so. Well, yeah, on Thursday it would be a little different.
I share well.
I didn't realize.
How are you? Ready? Just let me know when you're ready. Good? Okay. Good evening. We're going to head and start the meeting. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Troopman,
Here.
Vice Mayor Tudor,
Here.
Commissioner Butte,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson Sardelli,
Here.
Commissioner Ross,
Here.
Can we stand for the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any addition, withdrawals, or deletions from the agenda? Manager?
None for me.
And clerk?
Yes. A couple of things that probably could be handled with the manager's report. I'd like to, we haven't been reporting on FEMA lately, so I'd like to know where we are with that FEMA reimbursement. I was speaking to the clerk about the elections and the notice that's going to go out about the elections, because I've seen other cities advertising it, so just wanted to include an update on that. Perhaps an update on the newsletter that we've been waiting for. And the FRS audit, I know I asked you in an email over the weekend, we've talked about it before, but I haven't seen the status of, should be concluded by now, but we'll see. And we've mentioned before, the CITT guidelines require that we submit a resolution approving a budget by November 1st, which the due date's going to be before our next commission meeting. So if you could give us your update and plan on that. Sorry. They're just things that have been...
That's fine, but can we, go ahead and finish, and then we can put them in his manager's report if that's okay with you, so we don't change the agenda.
Right. I think that we're probably due for a shade meeting on the painters union contract and recent litigation. So if we can coordinate, we'll coordinate a meeting for that. And then I have 3 things that are resident requests, unrelated to the manager. If I could preview them for it with you?
If we could, we have a section at the end which talks about anything specific that commissioner comments. Can we put it up in that section? I'm happy to do it then.
For part, but one of them has to do with the Public Safety Advisory Board. And
There's a minutes issues which we need to address, and that has to come up, and we could do it then, because I'm going to actually
We're gonna pull the
that.
minutes?
I'm going to pull that minute for that
okay,
meeting.
we'll talk about it then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you. Manager, can you handle those items in your report?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so there are no additions technically from the perspective of the agenda for the manager, for the village clerk. Presentation, I'm going to turn this over to Manager Manners.
Okay. Tonight we have with us Jesus Grandio. He's with Enterprise Fleet Services. We're looking at moving all of our vehicles, both refinancing them and having the maintenance controlled through Enterprise as a savings to the village. And he has a presentation tonight, so.
And could you just quickly talk about, before he begins, could you just talk about why you did this and then what the savings are, so the community has a better picture? I know we all do because you've talked to us about it, but they do not, so.
Absolutely. When I arrived here a year ago, or a year and a half ago now, most of the vehicles barely had oil changes. They weren't being maintained, particularly unless something broke. And so we tried to get ahead of that last year. And in doing so, we also realized that, we had a reserve officer taking care of that. We believe that through utilizing, with our fleet, we were introduced to Enterprise, and they've shown us, how they could do it better than we are. We don't really have the staff to do it, and there's a cost saving to the village.
And what is that cost savings,
So-
approximately? I'll let
I'll let Mr.
Thank you.
Grandio go through that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesus Granadillo, and I'm an account executive for Enterprise Fleet Management. I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I have to lift a little bit.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Sorry about that. I'll try to be brief. First of all, thank you so much for having me over here. Thank you for the commissioners. I've been working closely with Mr. Manners and also with the Chief Carrera over here during the past few months, making sure that we can get this done. You probably know Enterprise more on the rental side because of our Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National, and Alamo. However, I'm with the Fleet Division. On the Fleet Division, what we do, we work with municipalities, helping them share our economies of scales as well as our technology to help you have run newer fleets at a lower monthly cost. Sorry, she forgot to change. The presentation is actually on the TV. I don't know if you guys can see it. But the goal for us is to help you run newer fleet at low cost or budget or below budget. We currently are partnered with over 75 municipalities in the state, across the state. There are some cities, some school districts, counties, police departments. They all operate a little bit differently. The one thing that we find in common when we meet with them is that they all want to get out of their car business. They want to focus on what's important to them, which is keeping the lights on, taking care of their employees, keeping their communities safe. And they realize that in order for them to do that, they have to have a reliable running fleet. What you see over there on the last circle is the scope of services that we offer. Each government operates a little bit differently, so actually it's the last slide. A little bit differently, so some governments will like to completely outsource everything and use us as their fleet management company, so we can take care of everything, and some of them, they just need a handful, so that's why it's important that we customize each one of the programs that we create for governments. Now, on these slides that you see here, you see this is the most common challenge that we find with governments, and is that the fleet budget that is allocated to them, 2/3 of them are being used on operating older vehicles, such as like fuel, maintenance, downtime. And what we're doing for police departments is we're helping them acquire more vehicles or maximize that capital budget. So in return, by having new vehicles, you will have a direct impact into the operating budget. So you guys will be able to run a newer, safer, and greener fleet right now. For those of you that don't know, we can offer FSA pricing, which is what you guys currently use. So right off the bat is apples to apples comparison when it comes to acquiring the vehicles. Now, where we make a difference is on the disposal of the vehicles. Most, or the resale value of the vehicle. Most governments, they like to run their fleets 10 to 12 years, and sometimes I've seen 15 and 20 until, the wheels fall off. And with Enterprise, we like to look at each specific type of fleet and find the optimal type of replacement, whether it's 6 years or it's 6 months, depending on the vehicle and the function that you have for it. We're going to determine when is the best time for you to cycle that vehicle. Not only that will have a financial impact, but also a safety impact. Your vehicles will be a lot more reliable and a lot more eco-friendly as well. The resale of the vehicles or the disposal of the vehicle is a science, is not a guesswork, and we have the software to prove you that on each one of your vehicles, we can tell what the market value is today and what it will be in 12 months. A lot of governments, they love these about us because they can relate to their 12-month budget year, and they can make adjustments as the year go, whether you want to extend the life cycle of a vehicle or you want to reduce it to make sure that it fits within the budget every year. On the police department specifically, we like to take a look at 3 types of vehicles. One is the administrative fleet, the other one is the patrol units, and the last one is any of the narcotics or undercover police. We understand that each one of those type of fleets have different needs, different life cycles, different wear and tear. So once we identify that life cycle, then we can determine how we want to fund those vehicles and make them fit within the budget. As you can see over here, we have flexible financial options. The most common use right now in government is a municipal lease. It's the most flexible. It's basically a financing of the vehicle. Some municipalities prefer to pay cash, and that's okay as well. And for some vehicles, a closed-end lease or is basically like a long-term rental is something that financially makes a lot of sense as well. We have proven success. There's plenty of case studies that we've shown from all across the country, from police departments, cities, counties, that our program actually works and that we've been able to provide those savings to all these municipalities. You can go again, sorry. One more. Now, how do we implement this program? As you can see on the next slide, we have plenty of contracts across the state that have been vetted, as well as we have relationship with purchasing cooperatives that you guys can piggyback off, and save you time in the due diligence process because it's already been done. So we have provided those contracts as well for you to take care. Over here, as you can see, this is the fleet proposal specific that we've been talking about with the village. We're proposing to buy out and refinance the 10 vehicles that you currently have with Bancorp, getting them all under the right cycle to avoid the increase in fuel and maintenance expenses, and maximize the resale value on these vehicles when they come to term. By doing that, we're going to be able to lower your monthly payments by $1,000, which in return, in a year-wise, it will save you about $12,000. We also are proposing to implement a maintenance management program on the whole fleet that will help you audit and supervise every maintenance and repair that is done to your vehicles. We provide you with record keeping, and all the payments will be done under one invoice. By doing that, we estimate that we can save you at least 15% on the operating expense side. We also want to provide you with a local account management team that will serve to you as your fleet manager, as well as new technologies such as your own customer website to provide you with visibility and a mobile app for more efficiency to your drivers. We're also planning on creating a replacement plans for all your vehicles when they reach the optimal time of replacement. And at the end of the day, what we want to do is provide you with a more fuel efficient, greener, and safer, more reliable fleet. I know I've given you a lot of information. If you guys have any questions, please feel free.
Any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Bill?
Okay. The new monthly payment will be $4,600 a month
That's for the 10 vehicles, correct?
for the 10 vehicles. We are now paying, are we now paying $45.61?
No, you're paying right now 57 and change. It's not showing on these over here. Hold on, let me see. Where do you see the 50?
I see
No.
the 46 is the last item. It says.
Yeah,
monthly payment,
that
right?
46 is excluding the maintenance management, as you can see right next to it, and the service charge. You can see it at the end is added up. So your current payment is what you guys provided to us through Bancorp, and it was $5,700. And your current payments with everything included and the maintenance program will be $4,700. So it will be a difference of $1,000 per month. So in a year, if you multiply by 12, it ends up being about 12,000.
Okay, so it's does that include the maintenance or doesn't? it?
Correct. Includes the maintenance
So
management
we
program.
were paying 46, we're now paying 57.
Correct.
Also, it does mention here estimated mileage on municipal contracts, I think you said there isn't any estimate.
Correct. There's no miles restriction. Is just what we use to estimate the depreciation of the vehicles, but there's no charge per miles.
Okay.
We're just using, typically government space is about 10,000 a year, but in most cases it's always lower. So that only is going to benefit the village when it comes down to reselling the vehicles, because they're going to have less miles than what we expected to
And the
have.
capitalized price is what you buy from
From Bancorp.
Bancorp?
Correct.
Right. And you depreciated the same rate that they did, or less or more? or-
Well, we depreciate it according to the age of the vehicle, so you can see some of the vehicles are 2014 and the newer ones are 2017.
Right.
So obviously the 2017s, in order for them to get to a 5-year or a 60-month term, they're gonna be a longer depreciation, while the ones that 2014, 15 are gonna be a shorter term, because once they reach that 5-year mark or 60 months, then we're planning on reselling and using the proceed from that resale into the new vehicles, into the fleet.
So the ones that, now, for example, that are, okay, I see what you're saying. That's, fine.
Any other questions? Commissioner Johnson, sit down.
No, actually, I'm looking here at the whole.
So can you put the mic closer to you? Thank you.
Excuse me, these are just for the vehicles, because I guess I'm not seeing the motorcycle.
Correct. No,
on
we-
here.
The motorcycle's not included in
Right,
this. so.
no, I just wanted to be clear there. I have nothing additional right now.
Commissioner Tudor?
Commissioner,
Vice Mayor Tudor?
nothing right now, still just
Commissioner Roth?
Yeah, thank you. I met two gentlemen from this enterprise group 2 years ago at the Miami-Dade League of Cities Best Practices, 2 years ago this month.
I think I met you there.
Yeah.
I've been
right.
attending those meetings.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
So since that meeting 2 years ago, I brought back the material. I spoke to the then chief of police. And when the manager came on board, I spoke to him about the service as well. Initially, more focusing on the maintenance and having a steady maintenance contract. I wasn't sure whether we would, I was ready to jump to a full fleet situation, but, and I still would like to see, more materials than those couple of slides that I could barely read. But I like the idea that it fixes our pricing, and so it's easier on our budget. Someone's always going to be there to make sure that the maintenance is done and to make sure that we switch out equipment as it ages and don't wait
Right.
for the wheels to fall off.
Right.
So, if the numbers work out and if I have enough information to guide a decision, I think we definitely should take a closer look at it. And thank you for coming out tonight, even if it's 2 years later.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Chief?
really quick. I want to clarify a couple of things. When we talk about the maintenance program, the discussions we had, we're paying, if you notice, the slide that he put up there showed that we're taking over 10 vehicles that we're going to buy from Bancorp, that Enterprise is going to do that. The additional vehicles are going to fall for $10 a month into the maintenance program. What they will be doing is sending it to authorized vendors, making sure at that time that the work is done right. And let me give you an example why. Once I accepted this job working with the manager, I was just blown away. We had a vendor out there that we had an issue with a hose. I'm not a mechanic, so excuse, and something with the tires. Well, when we lifted up the hood, they had put duct tape around the hose, and they had the bolts missing on the wheels of the axle. I just total officer safety is a safety issue. So this is going to allow experts and oversight to make sure these vehicles are being repaired properly, maintained properly, and when these vehicles reach their peak, we're able to turn around, sell the vehicle, get the most we can for that money, use that money to upgrade to a new vehicle. I think that works. Two things that I wanted to get out of the business is make sure is we're not managing cars anymore, and obviously with the other issues with towing and other stuff that comes along with the police department. The manager has been extremely supportive when it's come to that, and we little by little. I know you said it happened 2 years ago. I'm just chipping away at the things that need to get done, so we get there, and we're gonna get there. So, but I think this is a great start. This is my opinion as your chief. Whether you go up or down, it's an opportunity for us to be able to move forward. In the future, we discussed, they're not out yet. The hybrids total for the cars, but they don't have them in the police package. So we're going to be waiting on that. So it'll give us time to kind of turn things around the corner. So thank you for this opportunity.
And, go ahead.
So most of our vehicles are in the police department, but we also have, Public Works has 2 pickup trucks, and the code, we're looking into purchasing or leasing a car, at least a car or 2 for code. So would this contract bring those in?
They would, and we've actually discussed that with Mr. Grandio. In particular, he's sourcing now for the 2 code cars for this year. He's sourcing hybrids for that for us, and so we are looking into that. And we will be moving the Public Works vehicles as well. And I'm not sure the large flatbed truck. I'm not sure if that you could handle that too. Okay, then yes, both Dodges and the large flatbed that we purchased last year will be included in this.
I just have a question regarding, as a interest rate issue. I know interest rates are going up, so I know it's in our benefit to get this moving faster rather than slower. Otherwise, the savings won't be as nice as they currently are. So what is our time frame on that? And so we know, and the attorney can also be aware since the attorney's working with this.
Well, as you mentioned, interest rates actually change every month. So right now, this is locked as the pricing that we have for the current interest rate. And once the contract is approved, it stays with that interest rate for the rest of the term. Now, obviously, if we wait 1 more month, whatever the new interest rate will be in a month, that's the rate that it's going to be. And consequently, if we keep moving month after month.
Okay, so it's in our benefit to move faster rather than slower. I mean, that's what I'm trying to
And that was
ascertain.
part of the strategy today, Madam Mayor and Honorable Commissioners, to bring this forward, to give you an opportunity to get some of the information, process it before we bring the contract to commission as soon as possible, so we can, we're in a better position. And I know earlier there was a question raised on the motorcycle. As everybody's aware, the motorcycle has been out here. We have a full-time officer now riding it, and we are in the near future looking to see if we expand that, because it's been really successful. It was used out here in the event that we had the other day, and with the issues that we have with traffic enforcement, it's a great tool.
Yeah, and I've noticed them quite frequently in the morning when I go to work with their people pulled over on 6th Avenue and other places as well. Thank you.
My initial concern, I'll be really brief, was I didn't have an officer identified to ride the second bike, and I received great news that Kevin Lopez will be staying with the department, and he's certified to ride a bike. I just have to send him to the police school.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
Thank you. My recollection is that the 1 motorcycle that we have, that was a cash purchase, so there's not an issue of buying it back. It's just, it would be the second bicycle and then the maintenance going forward.
Correct. And in discussions with the vendor that we've used in the past, we actually have identified a bike with a lot less miles than the one we had before at a much cheaper price, which it's a great opportunity.
I guess I've got one other question, is in order to lock the price in, we'd have to vote on this before November 1st.
In other words, interest rate.
Right, for the interest rates.
Correct.
Right? And we also need these, Commissioner Ross brought up about our CIT thing needs to be done before November 1st.
Right.
should we have a meeting, a special meeting at the end of October so we can do both things at the same time? Would that make any sense?
If I may, Madam Mayor and members of the commission, we will be having a meeting.
Oh, okay. I just,
So we will, to the extent necessary, we can add these on. The chief staff has forwarded to me several versions of the piggyback contract, for lack of a better description, that we can use. There's what I like to call the magic language as to how you have to draft the resolution approving it. And so we will have it ready for that special call, and it'll be on there.
Okay.
that's all I want.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you so much for coming to present.
Thank you, guys.
I really
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we're going to open up the floor to public comments.
It's open. George Marinoni, 1002 Northeast 118th Street. I just wanted to talk about the Biscayne Power Foundation. We started to run a brick campaign to put some bricks here on the entrance of the log cabin, and we made an email list, a blast, and we got some people sending us checks already. The only thing is, I don't know, this was in the works for like a year and a half or two, and it was a lot of work. So we don't remember if we really, I talked to the other members, asked for permission from the commissioners to do this or not. So what we want to do is redesign the entrance to the log cabin, that part where it's mulch right now, and put bricks in there. So we want to ask for the permission and then probably go to parks and parkways and ask their input to what will be the best way to design that. And we want to run that campaign for another 2 or 3 months until we get, so far we have some responses, but we want to run it for longer so we get enough people, give the opportunity to put their name in there and whatever they want to say. And I think there will be a good opportunity for all the residents of Biscayne Park to put, okay, I was here one day.
I know we didn't have any additional withdrawals, deletions to the agenda, and I don't normally do this in public comments, but since this is something for all of us in the village, do we have a consensus to move forward with the brick project? Is there an issue need to discuss that or move it as an item?
Was it ever done before?
I thought we had a...
Was the approval ever done before? I don't recall. I don't recall.
Commissioner
We-
Johnson?
No,
I-
I just had a recollection that we might have had a discussion, and I don't, as Commissioner Ross says, I don't know if we had approval. I don't have an issue with it.
Just to move things forward, if there is no issue, can we have a consensus, or do you want to, I'm going to ask the commission what they'd like to do. Do you want to move forward as a discussion item? We've already closed the additional withdrawals to Glenn, so it would have to be at the next meeting, which we have no problem doing, or we can have a consensus now to move forward. Commissioner Ross.
I just have a question about what messages will be put in there, and I'm assuming that the foundation will have a final say to make sure that it's not inappropriate.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And do we, once we say you can put anything down, then do we have the ability to pull back on that?
Well, yeah, we have to approve. First, we have the website, you can put your name and whatever you want to put. There are 2 or 3 lines, that depends on the size of the brick, and that comes to us. So then we have to approve it and make sure there is no misspellings, and then when everything is correct, then we can submit that. So the bricks won't be printed until the end.
So you can submit that to...
We want to make sure everything is, especially misspellings is very important, because sometimes, or people misspell, or, we want to get the approval to everything is correct, because once you print the brick, is done. So if there is something inappropriate, we catch it right there. They cannot just do it.
Commissioner Ross.
And I think maybe an opinion from the attorney, whether it infringes on someone's freedom of speech, or I know that there are certain regulations about signage that once you say you can put up signage, you can't regulate what the actual substance of the sign is, just to make sure that we're not in bad territory.
The foundation, as the entity that is controlling this, can set its standard as to what is an acceptable message. I think the only thing that the commission needs to do is to potentially vote or indicate that there is a consensus to allow the foundation to put something on your property. Because ultimately that's what will happen is while you have discussed this and some of this discussion appears to have taken place prior to my time up here with you on the dais, I would just recommend that to the extent that it hasn't already been a vote or a discussion is, yes, we will allow this. We are going to allow and authorize the foundation to put the bricks on village property.
Okay, and then my only concern is the messaging and making sure we don't have anything that's inappropriate. And then how do we, Attorney, how would we deal with those issues? Is there a final vote or approval, or how would we do that?
What I would
Without
suggest,
infringing.
What I would suggest is that, and I think that the foundation understands that there's a concern about what can and can't be said on, and so maybe prior to the bricks being put in place before they're finished, that the foundation can advise you what guidelines that they've created as to what is the message that can be placed on the bricks.
Can I suggest?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. That maybe next month or at the next meeting, we have a resolution supporting and by way of helping to advertise for the campaign. And that way, it's on the agenda and we'll know what your guidelines are for the messaging, and then you'll have like a formal approval and basically advertisement for it.
Makes sense.
Okay, is there a consensus on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Bill, anything else to add?
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Bill? No. All right, continuing public comments. Thank you, sir.
Doc Morris, 119th Street. I have a request for all these people here as well as the commissioners. I'm a Rotarian, and Rotary is a service club, and we do a lot of good projects. And one of our projects is we put flags out, and you probably noticed that 4 times a year there's a flag that flies by the sign out representing Biscayne Park Village. We charge $50 a year. We put the flags out 4 times a year: President's Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and the 4th of July. They usually stay out for a couple of days, but sometimes when it's raining, they may stay out for a week. And the people that give us the money for the flags, which is $50 for the whole year, we take that money and we give it to various projects. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but Biscayne Park has received about $500 every year for the Summer Fest or the Winter Fest. So even though you give some money to us, we give it back to you probably tenfold. So think about it. It's a great way to recognize our country and all the work that the Rotarians do and all the work that you all do as commissioners. Thank you.
And thank you, Doc, for all that you do as well.
Hi, Dan Keys, and Parks and Parkways Board Chairman. You're all aware I sent 2 emails today, one initiated by me and one initiated in response to the manager's response to you, regarding the decision made by the administration to provide a 3-foot space between the planting here.
If I may interrupt for 1 second, Mr. Keys, was that discussion actually brought up at your meeting?
Yes.
So the 3-foot space?
Several times.
No.
Okay. No? It wasn't brought up at the Park and Parkways?
Several times.
It was not specifically the 3 feet, but it was brought up. There was We did talk about the placement of that.
Okay, can we, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I don't want...
Because my question is he representing the board when he says this, or is he representing himself?
I'm representing the board.
The board.
Several conversations took place at the board with the adjacent property owner there. Additionally, there was a field meeting when we set the landscaping here on site where we further discussed that. And the board specifically discussed the space that the adjacent property owner, you all know which property we're talking about over here, wanted between his property line and any plantings. Okay, he felt that it should be wide enough, and this was the discussion, to permit a dumpster truck to come in through that space and align with his property so that maintenance could be done on his property. The board discussed that in particular, and all of the members of the board kind of indicated that that wasn't the village's responsibility to provide that sort of space. We came up with a 6-foot wide space that is more than adequate to provide planting space for the materials that the board discussed. No more than that is necessary. That provides us with the maximum amount of space remaining in the open space west of the planting for whatever use the village may come forward with in the future. The way that we have it currently proposed is that there be a 3-foot space between the property line and the beginning of the bed for these plant materials. And the bed is 6 foot wide. The plant material would go in the center of this bed, so that the plant grows one way, the plant grows the other way, and the edge of the grass is not imposed upon. The reason given for the 3-foot space is so that the adjacent property owner could maintain his wall. We feel that the space that was being provided by the recommendations of the board is more than adequate for someone to walk down the edge of their between the wall and the plant material as it may grow, and maintain the wall. We don't see any purpose for any public value to this 3-foot space. We see the negatives of that being an area that's taken out of use for the public effectively, that it's an area that needs to be maintained. It's just a very odd space, an alleyway, if you will, between two uses. The plant materials are a code requirement by Miami-Dade County Code, and there's specifics there, and we're exceeding the code in terms of the size of the plant material and spacing and so forth. We just don't see any public use for it. Secondly,
I'm sorry, it's 3 minutes, if you could just...
Yeah, I mean, I'm a board chairman. There was at least 5 or 8 minutes provided to the previous board chairman, if I may. I have, because I haven't discussed this with the board, I haven't discussed the contents of the emails or any responses that have been given me to the board. We believe that the fact that this is a code requirement, and that I believe the manager has indicated to the property owner that the reason we're providing this space is for the property owner to provide maintenance to the wall. Okay, I don't believe that was the manager's desire. That was the property owner's desire. And because it's a code requirement, should the village need that 3-foot by 138-foot long space that's been taken out, proposed to be taken out of use, there is a right imposed by this action to leaving the hedge where it is, and that the property owner would at least have the ability to say, you made an agreement with me, it's a verbal agreement, you solidified that agreement by putting the plant materials in a certain place, okay? And I believe it would be difficult for the village to backtrack and have those materials moved closer to the wall such that they could use their property in a way that might be envisioned in the future, unknown to any of us. And as such, it's kind of a land use decision, in my opinion. It's like a variance for side setback or something like that. I mean, it's not that, but because it's a code requirement, I believe there is a little bit more burden on the village to solidify in writing, as approved by the commission, in whatever form the attorney sees fit, any agreement that is made there. Who's going to maintain it? Who has liability for it? All of these things are questions that we can assume to answer frivolously, but when push comes to shove, we're not going to have the ability to win that argument. And, okay, I think that you all have the facts that, from me, and I would ask that you publicly ask the attorney for some commentary on the situation, and that you frankly have the plant material placed in a strip of planting bed that's 6 foot from the property line.
Thank you. Just to address this as a board member, to be fair to both board members, I'd like to go ahead and just address this and move on if we may. Either we can do it now or towards the end. I don't care. We have several people waiting for public comments. How would you like to do that, Commissioner?
About his comments?
Yep.
I guess I'd like to go back to my original comment I'm sorry, Commissioner Ross is first.
You were recognized.
My original comment was, yeah, the discussion was done with the board, but the fact that you're now complaining about the fact that it's 6 feet wide, you just said was not brought up before the planning and before parkways. That's no, you just said it wasn't.
No, I did not.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so you're discussing about the fact that it's 6 feet wide?
Okay, may I for a moment, because I spent about an hour talking to Mr. Keys regarding this. I just would like to interject, and I'd like the manager to correct me if I'm wrong on any account here. My understanding is that the resident in question, without mentioning names, wanted a 3-foot back from the wall so this individual could maintain their wall. My understanding is that the bed was moved, the cutting of the bed, so in other words, there's a grass strip about 3 feet wide from the wall, which is our property, from the edge of the wall out.
That's correct.
The bed itself is 6 feet wide, is that correct, or 7?
The
I've
bed
heard both.
itself is, I believe, 6 feet wide.
Okay, 6 feet wide. So I'd like to offer a solution to the problem. You can decide either way as a commission, but at the end of the day, the manager's decision to accommodate the resident so that he could maintain his wall and not have to climb through bushes, which I thought was a reasonable thing to do, but I also understand the concern of Mr. Keys regarding the 3-foot. In a real situation, you wouldn't do that. Let me offer a solution so they don't have to pull up more grass and have more work, is you can just move the Samson stoppers, which are about 4 feet wide, to the edge of the bed in the back. They would grow almost further, and then you would solve Mr. Key's issue regarding that. Eventually, the grass would, of course, die because you're going to be shaded out when it grows. But the average Simpson stopper can be about 4 feet wide. That would solve the issue of ownership. Now, that depends on whether or not the city manager, we want to get involved with deciding where something goes or doesn't go, and this is a village manager decision. My issue is, and I'm going to ask the attorney this, please, in terms of making recommendations to the board, whose ultimate decision is it to making these decisions? Is it the village manager? Where plant material is placed?
Well,
Since we don't have a public works director, I'm assuming.
well, certainly, ultimately, your manager is the one responsible for implementing, your policy directions and the regulations in your city code. I think the distinction is that you also have an advisory body which advises you, but ultimately the decision of compliance with whatever are the existing regulations is the responsibility of the manager. And unless you all...
And the board advises us, correct? Or does the board advise the manager or both, or how does that work?
No, it advises you all, and then you
Okay.
direct policy to the
Okay.
manager.
Just want to confirm. Okay, thank you, sir. Open up the floor.
I was just going to suggest, because there's a couple of questions that were asked, and even in your comments, if we're talking about ownership or who should place something where, I would suggest maybe at the end, under the village attorney's comments, if we want to pose the specific question of the concern that Mr. Keys has with
During that time.
an ownership issue as to whether or not this 3 feet is somehow granting ownership to the property owner or issues like that. I think
That'd be
if
appropriate
we could
place
say
for
that
it.
concisely, maybe then, rather than, because it seems like this is just going to snowball.
Okay, and the village attorney's report is before the board and committee report either way, so that would work. Is that a consensus?
Fine.
Yes. Fine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's move on.
If I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Just commenting. So, the advisory board, yeah, in fact, it is
Excuse-
advisory to the commission, but also, in the ordinance, it's advisory to the manager in certain respects. It sounds like a reasonable compromise. What you're saying is plant the stoppers, which are the higher trees, closer
To
towards
the
back
east,
of the-
correct.
of the cutout. What's striking to me is just the way this all comes about, because this board has done more work to improve our village than almost any other board, perhaps except the foundation. But as far as improving the physical surroundings, the physical open spaces, I mean, they've been responsible for the plantings abutting the bridge, the plantings over at the rec center, the restoration of this median here, even the plantings along 6th Avenue, which, 9 years ago was just scraggly weeds. So I wouldn't discount or just disregard what they say, and if I had a question about what they're recommending, then I would, ask that question. I think that it's just a courtesy for people who've spent so many years and put in so many hours in helping to improve our community. So that's something that's unsettling for me. The other part of it, the actual physical thing that is being done, frankly, doesn't make any sense to leave a strip of grass back there that behind the hedge that's going to have to be maintained, and it's just adds more work to our public works people in keeping the area nice. So,
If I may, just to make sure we can move forward, and I understand your points, and I also agree that board members put a lot of time and energy into helping out the village, and we have to listen as well. But there's also the other side, which is the manager's attempting to balance the needs of a resident with moving it back for 3 feet and making an accommodation. I thought that was a reasonable approach. At the same time, I understand everybody's concerns regarding the grass and the ownership. So in order to move us forward in this meeting, so we're not doing this all night, village attorney, can you address the issues regarding property ownership and whether or not moving a plant back 3 feet would then somehow abut special rights to that resident regarding that property? We can do that during your manager's report, attorney's report at 14A. And then if Mr. Keys wouldn't mind, on 14C, we'll readjust it at a greater length for discussion on how to move forward. Thank you.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I have no dog in this fight, but just based on all of this item was not on the agenda, and I don't think it's fair to the resident to have this discussion without that person being able to put in their own input.
Thank you.
Did you announce yourself? That was Linda Dillon, by the way.
She said that. Thank you. Go ahead.
I agree with her.
Did you say your name?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to talk about the last meeting we had, which is the second budget hearing. And a little quote from Mark Twain. It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. At the last meeting, what happened on last Tuesday, actually, I was actually trying to have a conversation with the finance director before the meeting to try to get a few issues straight in my head. One of the issues related to, well, first of all, let me take a step back. The ordinance itself had an error on it, which was corrected before the meeting. The error was that it's supposed to list the taxable certified value of the entire village, which is 217, approximately 217 million. Instead, it listed 2.1 million. The 2.1 million is the revenue that's being derived from the 217 million. This was pointed out before the meeting. I told Rox told the administration, they fixed it, they brought it to the meeting with the 217 million in that paragraph. However, on the website, there's no notice that there was an error and it was revised. It just looks like that was what was presented and was posted before the meeting. But more importantly, that led me to look a little further in the ordinance. And I noted that the revenue assessed, as advertised rather, the revenue advertised was listed as $1,991,000, as opposed to the 100% assessment that I calculated, which would have been $2,111,000, which was listed coincidentally in the first paragraph. So that, when I saw the two different numbers, I was trying to figure out what's going on here. And in going through this, it occurred to me that, and after talking to the finance director, who told me that it was correct the way it was, and I didn't think it was correct, but I didn't have enough information to really disagree with him. So the bottom line is, it seemed to me that in all transparency, you have to show or disclose the maximum amount of revenue that you're going to assess, which would be the 100%. So it only made common sense to me. As it turns out, that turned to be correct. And that's where I talk about what you know for sure, sometimes just ain't so. To get to the bottom line here, though, it shouldn't all be on one person, in this case being the finance director or one particular person in our administration that is getting this information and posting it. Somebody's got to be looking over somebody, and it just seems to me when I see errors like this, that's telling me there's no checks and balances, and that's a concern. And it's not the only concern that I've seen. For example, we had numerous errors in the budget. We went through, I don't know how many drafts, I lost count of how many drafts of the budget we went through. So anyway, let's try to do better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. George Marinoni came up for the foundation talking about the pavers, the engraved bricks, and I looked back at I had heard the manager, I think, had mentioned to Park and Parkway something about a fundraising thing that they were thinking about this. But I looked back at the minutes for the foundation, and back as far as February, they were already going ahead. They had people in charge of this, trying to get estimates. They were moving forward. And you all seem very concerned with what's written. Is it going to violate anything? And as someone on the Park and Parkways board, I look at what's the process? Are they going to get, because it said they were going to buy them in groups as they come in. So are you going to get 20 bricks and put 20 bricks in a sidewalk? Who's going to get a permit? There has to be a foundation for this. You can't just lay bricks on the dirt. You have to have some kind of a side, something that would hold the bricks in. You have to have considerations for handicap parking. There are so many things involved, and like a lot of projects in this village, we go ahead and we ask the questions later. And this should be discussed before. Where is this path even going to go? The path that's there now, the mulch path, that was an arbitrary thing that they did because we didn't have the money to put any kind of hardening into the front of the building. But yet Park and Parkways wasn't asked to look at this. And I don't even know if you want Park and Parkways to do it. What about a landscape architect to plan? Where's the money going to come from that? What is the foundation really going to get? Are they going to be able to pay for this, the engineering, the work, the foundation, the materials? Are they buying are we putting the entire pathway in, and then they're going to be taking out bricks to have them engraved? Who's going to pay for that? I don't know. It's like, I would be asking more questions because you are in charge. Whether people want to think that way, you are the one member of the foundation. It's up to this commission to oversee it. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of oversight. So, I don't know. And I share Chuck's frustration in many mistakes being made around the budget. And I wasn't at the last meeting, but I also heard that we wasted $3,600 by posting it in the wrong place in the Herald, which again, just, money down the drain, which is one of the reasons I wasn't even going to come to the meeting. And I'm going to be leaving because these meetings really is just too frustrating. So please take care of this before you decide to dump it on Park and Parkway somehow, that we're supposed to have the answers for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Jonas, 918 119th Street. I had one issue, but now I have two. First of all, I want to echo what Linda and Chuck said and point out to you how grossly unfair the previous discussion about the planting was. It was presented in public comment, but it wasn't a public comment at all. As Harvey confirmed with Dan, it was really a board report. In that way, it could have come at the end, but because of the complexities and the fact that it involved another resident, it really should have been on the agenda. It should not have been discussed here at all the way it was, and I'm regretful that you allowed this to happen and wasted everybody's time. Having said that, the reason I'm here is sort of on my own behalf, but also on the behalf of David Raymond and Art Gonzalez, and I don't know if they've been in touch with you since last week. The two of them were trying to put together a Meet the Candidates event like the type we typically do and have done for many, many years, and I'm trying to put together one as well. The reason that David approached you last week, I'm talking to you, Tracy, because he approached you after the meeting, and you told him to come back today. I don't know why he's not here, but the reason he approached you is that he and Art would like to use this room for their event if it happens, and what they wanted to ask of you, of the commission, is that you will waive the fee for using this room. I would like to do the same thing, but not in this room, because there are very few opportunities between now and the election. I would like to use the recreation center, and I'd like you to waive the fee as well. I will tell you that as far as I know, David and Art have had a problem getting cooperation and commitments from almost all of the candidates, and I have too. Why people are running for office and they do not want to be part of a Meet the Candidates event and show themselves to the neighborhood and their neighbors and answer questions is beyond me. We have always done that. I don't understand what's wrong with these people as candidates and why they're withholding the way they are. But in any case, if David and Art can get their event to happen, and if I can get mine to happen, we'd both like you to waive the fees. David and Art for here, me for the recreation center, and neither of us has chosen a date yet, so we can't give you that. But we would come forward with one if you waived the fees, and if we can get minimal cooperation from 4 of the candidates who are so far refusing, as far as I know, to do anything.
Any other public comments? None. Okay.
Can we add that as a discussion item, this request?
We've already closed addition withdrawals from deletion. However, in abundance of fairness to everybody, let's go ahead and put it, if there's no objections for the rest of the commission, let's go ahead and put it under new business 12C if there's no objection. And then I have to have a motion to allow for an addition, withdrawal, deletion outside of the sequence of this agenda.
So you just, a motion wants just to add?
To be able, because we've already closed the addition, withdrawals, and deletions, now we're reopening it. Is there a motion to reopen addition?
I'll make the motion to reopen the additions and deletions.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, can we add it to 12C, or the request to open the request for discussion on opening the facilities for candidates forum.
Waiving the fee.
Waiving the fee for the candidates forum, thank you. Okay, let's keep it moving, please. Information updates, manager? Manager?
None.
None, okay. Acceptance of the meeting, of the commission meeting minutes. There's a consent agenda. I would like to pull Public Safety Advisory Board. There's one in there. Get the date. So it'd be Wednesday, August 22nd. That's the one I'm suggesting to pull. Commissioner Ross, did you have another one?
No, I did not need to pull any minutes, but we can certainly discuss them.
I'd like to pull and discuss that one afterwards, if we may. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the balance of the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we accept the balance of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, pulling that August 22nd, if we could just go ahead and go through that very quickly. It's a new board, so I think they made, they're supposed to be making a recommendation to the board, and I believe they just went ahead and approved a change that I think we need to discuss. Where is it at? Okay. They talk about changing members. That is a commission decision, so under new business, there was a motion to remove Clayton Dingle from the board due to second absence, and then there was a motion to go ahead and make Russell Ely permanent. That has to go in front of the board. I have no objection to it. I just want to make sure, since it was not on the agenda item, we either put it on the next meeting agenda item, because I believe that's something that we have to do as a board. Am I incorrect in that, attorney?
I believe you're correct. I think, if I remember correctly with code, what we used to do is we made a recommendation to the commission to remove a member, and to make any changes, then we all had to ask you for both things.
So if I just may, I have no objections to what they did. I know they're new, so I know they don't know all the rules. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and put that before the board for the next meeting, and then just go ahead and vote it for approval.
Because I think we also have a,
Yeah, I mean,
Or
if they
can
are
we-
a new board, then, and they're new board members, certainly can give them the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely. But I don't want to not have it advertised, so we don't have an
Right.
issue, if we may.
and that also means that we then have a alternate position open.
Correct, correct. Commissioner Ross?
Okay, so the minutes, as they approve them, are not really what we're discussing. It's we can't disallow their minutes. This is what happened, this is what they recorded.
Correct. I just wanted to pull the item for discussion before moving forward.
Okay, so when I read the minutes, I understood that it's a new board, and the way I interpret it is that they are telling us in their minutes that this member has not met the qualifications because of excessive absences. And then when you read the ordinance on attendance of members at meetings, yes, it is the commission who appoints and sort of disappoints those members.
Correct.
But I didn't really see their action as any kind of violation. I saw it as they're communicating to us, this member's not meeting the duties, and we need a new member appointed.
No, that's fine. And I'm assuming we have to post it and so forth to be fair. So that's why I didn't want to do it this meeting, unless you feel that's
Well,
unnecessary.
What I was going to suggest is, there's a member who was the first or second person who applied for this board when it was first enacted back in 2017. His application is August 25th, 2017. And that's Sandor Shear. Mr. Shear has been attending these meetings, at least the couple that I've been to, and he's been in touch with us, wanting to serve on the board. So I was going to move that we go ahead and place him. I was going to move that we take the recommendation from the committee as expressed in their minutes, where they appoint Mr. Russell as a member, a full member, and that we appoint Mr. Shear as the alternate to take that position.
Mr.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sandor
Shear. Thank you. I have no problem moving forward with that since it's a
But do
board
we
chair
have to
condition. Do we
advertise
have
that
to
we're
have-
appointing somebody?
Is this a requirement? Attorney Hearn, can you, Hearn, sorry, could you advise us?
I don't, well, I'll leave it to the attorney to decide. I don't think that it's a matter that really needs
I just want to make sure we
No,
don't
I
miss
mean,
steps.
every jurisdiction goes about their appointments in a different way. And by that I mean, certainly you have your ordinance, it's silent, but I know that in a municipality that I was their city attorney for many, many years, their policy was that if an opening came available through whatever, absence, whatever, then they would direct the clerk to put an ad out or notice out asking for people who were interested in being members. But if as Commissioner Ross says, you already have someone
Yeah.
who meets that criteria, then you can save the time and energy.
Okay,
of
just wanna make
staff.
sure.
It's within your discretion.
Okay, so Commissioner Ross, you have a motion on the floor?
I'm sorry.
You have a motion on the floor.
Yes, so I make a motion that we go ahead and accept the recommendation of the Public Safety Advisory Board, elevate Mr. Russell to a full board member, and that we appoint Sandor Shear as an alternate member to the board.
And that's Russell Ely, correct? You said Mr.
You're
Russell.
correct. Russell is his first name.
Thank you.
Ely is his second name.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With that in mind, can we go ahead and put these, approve these board minutes as well? Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the board minutes of the
August
Safety Advisory
22nd?
Board.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's no ordinances, so in resolution, attorney, if you'd go ahead and do resolution, but first I'd like to introduce Commissioner Ross's item, have her introduce it herself, Resolution 2018-30, Florida City Government Week, and thank you for bringing this forward.
It's me?
I'm having you introduce it first, and then we'll read.
Okay, so this is a resolution recognizing City Government Week in the state of Florida. It's October 22nd to the 28th, and we encourage all of our citizens to support this and celebrate with corresponding activities. I'm asking for two things. One is approval of the attached resolution, and for that resolution to be placed prominently on our website and at any regular agenda item for public discussion. I'm also asking that we recognize our volunteer board and foundation members for their dedication to the betterment of the village with a certificate to be presented to those board members at the board and foundation meetings during the month of October. And I'm suggesting that each of the commissioners, there are 6 boards when you count the foundation as well, so I'm suggesting that each of the commissioners, as they have time, to take one of the meetings so that one of us will be there to formally recognize the members, and then for the manager to join us in that 6th meeting. I'd ask that if you could check your calendar and we could square that away in the next couple of minutes and without taking too much time. But the point is to celebrate city government, and in these days where the authority of city government is basically under attack, it's important to educate our residents about where their basic services come from, and it's usually from the government that is closest to our taxpayers and to our residents. The Florida League of Cities has a lot of materials that they put out for this event in particular. I had asked the manager to try to source some of that for us a couple of months ago, but I know we have a lot of things going on and pressing projects, so we didn't get around to that. But I do have my button and the resolution, and so I hope that the board, the commission can support the resolution as presented.
Thank you. Attorney Heron, could you read the resolution for us?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. It's resolution number 2018-30. It's a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, recognizing Florida City Government Week, October 22nd through the 28th, 2018, and encouraging all citizens to support the celebration and corresponding activities and providing for an effective date.
Commissioner Ross, do you want to go ahead and make the motion?
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2018-30, recognizing Florida City Government Week.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Regarding the recommendation that we all take a meeting, are we all okay with that? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and square those dates out, or can we do that at the end, or you want to do that now?
Now would be fine.
Okay. Do you have those dates in front of you, Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, the Biscayne Park Foundation meets on October 9th, and the art.
Part of the
No, sorry, didn't see it. I'm reading the front. Thank you.
So it's October 9th, October 10th, 15th, 18th, or 24th.
I can do either the 9th or the 24th, so
I can do the 18th,
foundation.
or I could actually do the 24th. Yeah, or I could do the 24th. I can also do the 9th as well, or the 10th.
Okay. So, Mayor, if you would take the 9th, October 9th, and Commissioner Sardella, if you take the 24th.
The 24th is the only one I can make. I'm going to be
Is
away.
it?
Yeah.
Commissioner Bill, why don't you go ahead and take the 24th then? Commissioner Ross, why don't you take the 9th? I mean, Johnson Tardella, do you want to take the 9th? That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. I can take the 10th if you'd like.
Great.
The 10th?
Can you take the 15th?
I take the 15th.
Okay, so we will take the 15th. I'm
So
sorry,
I'll take
Vice Mayor.
So that leaves me with the Park and Parkers Board on the 8th.
Does that work for you?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing this forward. Go ahead and 10B.
One final thing.
Yeah.
If I could impose on the clerk to get some certificates ready for us. Sure. We can go through the list. Friday, we'll talk.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for spearheading
Thank
this.
you.
10B, Resolution 2018-31. I'm going to turn this over to the Manager Manners.
Resolution number 2018-31, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving a consulting services agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and the Florida International University Board of Trustees, FIU, to provide cultural awareness, sensitivity, and leadership training program to the Village of Biscayne Park Police Department, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and expend budgeted funds on behalf of the village, and providing for an effective date.
Open up for discussion. Or first, I'm sorry, Manager Manners. Could you go through it, please?
Sure. Briefly, this is a curriculum. It's an educational opportunity provided to our police force. The chief has worked closely with FIU, and we've met with them a few times to develop this curriculum. Specifically, it will be on cultural diversity and leadership training for our officers. This will hopefully be an ongoing training that as we bring in new officers down the road, we'll continue to do that. And the commissioners are also welcome to attend this. And so with that, staff recommends that we move forward with this.
Yeah, Chief, do you have any extra comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, Mayor, we're gonna be having the training once it's approved and the agreement signed on October 31st, prior to the event that we're having here at the park for Halloween. So I'm bringing them in a little earlier that day so we can complete the required training. As you all know, I've had many discussions with the commission about this. This is what I consider somewhat of a mandatory training in order for us to continue moving the police force forward and ensuring that some of the issues that occurred in the past never occur again. Part of the agreement that we're looking at is in the future, for the next 2 years, they will come back and provide follow-up training to make sure that anybody that has not been trained receives this additional training. Obviously, I am committed to not just the training with FIU. I've had many discussions also here with the board. I'm still in discussions with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies that will be coming in and providing additional trainings to our staff.
I have just a question regarding the training, because I know there was some room for the electeds. But the timing, I know, is during the day. Is that the only time that's going to occur for the electeds?
That's, our first training will be during the day on October 31st.
Right,
And
the-
the reason...
I'm sorry,
go ahead,
Mr.
Chief.
Manager. No, no,
Please.
absolutely.
No, the reasoning for that and why we chose that day is because we will have our full police force here that day.
Makes sense.
And for Halloween that night, and we could do the training that day.
And get
as
it all
well.
done in one place.
It was budgetary reasons to make sure we're fiscally responsible. They're here that day already.
Thank you very much. I just had a question, but I'll defer my questions until the commission has any. Any questions from the commission? All right, then I'll ask question. I express this to the manager and to the attorney. My only concern is with item E2, which is the use of name for publicity. Neither party should use the name of the other party of any faculty in any advertisement. The issue was the idea of the name of the party. Any faculty member I don't have an issue with, but as we're moving forward, we have a lot of reasons as to why we might need to post this on the website and other things to address some of the concerns that have happened with our police department, and I am concerned with that language precluding us from being able to do that. The attorney was aware that I was going to ask him this question because we discussed it, so I'm going to ask him to address that for us.
Madam Mayor, you are correct. I've looked at this language at your request several times, and I would suggest to you that my initial response is that, one, the moment that this document was provided to the village, it became by definition a public record. And so you all, to the extent that you want to, you can post this contract on your website, and there's literally nothing that FIU can do about it under Chapter 119. And in fact, there are some recent changes to Chapter 119 that strongly recommends and strongly suggests that municipalities put these types of things on their websites to make them available to the general public to see and be aware of what their government is doing for them. Number two, I personally, and we certainly can confirm this with FIU, I don't believe that posting this on your website constitutes advertising or promotional activity in the context of what they were trying to limit in this section of this agreement. You're not promoting an event. You're just simply telling people we're training our officers, and you're certainly not advertising for monetary gain. That I think what they're suggesting here is if you were to advertise, come get trained and pay the village and FIU, $8,000, then that would potentially run afoul of this section. But last but not least, to the extent that you still have concerns, or the commission has concerns, you can approve this agreement tonight, subject to us clarifying that with FIU before the agreement becomes effective.
Okay, because my concern, as you know, is that we need to be able to state affirmatively for the community what we're doing moving forward, and I want to be able to do that. And also, the way I think the analogy I used was if I went and got a degree from there, I could say, here, this is my degree from FIU. So if I got a certification, even if I got a certification from a university, I'm able to state that.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we're not precluding ourselves from being able to state that publicly or in any materials that we have moving forward.
No, and we do plan for this to be a certificate course, I believe.
Correct.
Chief?
Correct.
And so, and that certificate will, I presumably have FIU on it. Is that
The
correct?
certificate will have the institution that provided
It's just the language of that section. Is
the
that
training.
Yeah.
It'll be for each individual officer that attended, and one for the village as part of the fact that the village put this, they're putting on the training for the village, certifying that the village officers attended this training.
Yeah, I agree with Attorney Herron that I don't think that what we're discussing is what was meant by this paragraph, but by
Okay.
all means, if we need the clarification, that's fine. I think
We
this is
can
really
get that.
for more of, if it was like monetarily, like you're advertising for business or to take in money or something like that, I think is what was meant by this paragraph.
Thank you. As I said, I'm not an attorney, so when I read it, that's what it meant to me, but it doesn't make it so. Commissioner Ross.
Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of monetarily, I noticed that the agreement is for $7,500. We have $5,000 in the budget, and I guess the questions for the manager or finance, are we straddling the two budget years to pay for this? We're using some from this?
Right.
from this
We
last-
had 2,500 that was budgeted for this year's budget, so that's why we're signing it. We're getting this done. And then the additional 5,000 is when they complete the training, which is what's budgeted for this year's budget. And that's,
And do we know yet what that second day will be?
I'm
There's a
so-
second training day?
No, it's one.
It's one training day.
It's one training day, followed up by a yearly training day for the next 2 years.
Okay.
And that's at a minimal cost of, if I'm not mistaken, it was about $2,000.
It was
Yeah,
2,500.
2,500, okay, my apology,
No,
approximately. Between,
I'm trying to remember too, so you may be right, Chief, but.
yeah,
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? And thank you very much for moving forward with this and getting this so quickly done. Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-31?
I make a motion to approve resolution.
Attorney, one second.
yes,
Attorney Herron, do I need to make
Well, I mean, if the commission as a whole is still wishes for us to reach out to FIU and confirm our understanding of how that paragraph it should be read and applied, then the appropriate motion would be to approve the resolution, subject to confirming with FIU that
E2?
E2 does not prohibit the city from, or the village from posting this on their website and saying our officers are getting certified as a result of this training.
Is, one quick question, is a municipal website considered advertising?
No, I don't believe that.
I don't
As
believe so
said,
either, no, so
I
it's not-
believe that the moment that FIU actually gave us this agreement, and frankly, under the same laws that apply to us, apply to them. The moment they gave this document to anyone, it's now a public document in its final form. And you posting it on your website can't be prohibited.
Right.
Yeah, my other...
Possibly asking them if we in fact are going to say, our police officers have in fact taken this course, if that's something they'd be willing to do.
But
But
I don't read that.
But we need to do this anyway. so.
Regardless, it has to move forward.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're kind of spinning our wheels on this one item here. I think the intent for FIU, their coverage was that they're going to be providing possibly these type of training to private businesses, and they don't want private businesses using this as a selling tool. I don't think we're impacted by it. One thing, as the attorney mentioned, I'm in complete agreement with. Everything we do
is
a public record.
Correct.
So
And everything they do.
So
It's a public record.
there's nothing that would really impact us on this, so I don't think it's really necessary to go back to FIU on it.
Well, I can tell you, when I worked in the VP's office, for FAU, not for FIU clarifications, one of the issues was the use of the logo, and there was some concerns with people using that after they had it in a way that was,
For commercial
If I
purposes.
may,
Yeah.
if I
Right,
may
so that's-
interject, Madam Mayor, that scenario would be, I can understand that even falling under E1, which is intellectual property, because you're using the logo for some sort of business purpose. But I don't think we need to continue to spin our wheels here. If we want to err on the side of safety and just say, make a motion to approve this, subject to just getting clarity, let's say, define those two words, advertising and promotional, and leave it at that.
okay. Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, sorry, I'm glad that we had that discussion, because somewhere it was stuck in my head that it was going to be more than one day of training, and the consulting service agreement that's attached to this resolution on the second page says, deliver 3 trainings covering topics previously developed in a mutual agreement date, 2 trainings for police, 1 training for village staff and commissioners. That's at the top of the
Page 1,
second
page
page.
2.
Yeah, they're not numbered, but, and then somewhere else.
It's also C1.
C1 talks about consisting of 2 sessions that will examine the cultural bias tendencies of all individuals, blah, blah. So I either this is an old version of the proposal, or we're not talking about the same thing.
How long are the sessions? Do we know?
4 hours.
I'm just reading.
No, I'm just saying.
No, and we had talked about doing it in multiple sessions in order to get all the police officers in. By doing it October 1st, we were trying to reduce it to one session. But the agreement here is for 3 trainings, and we can do those if need be. So, Chief, do you have?
The discussions I've had with Florida International University is that they'll be coming in October 31st, and they'll be providing a day-long training for our officers, and then subsequent to that, they will follow up with they call retraining for the next 2 years. I know there were discussions about with the political leaders of the village, and possibly with also some residents on boards and so on. But I could only discuss the part from as far as the police department, my discussions with them.
They are not, if you read the 2 sections, they are not internally inconsistent.
Right.
They are, because what it says that there will be a total of 3 at the top of page 2 to the police department and 1 to the commission. If you then read C1, it very specifically says the 2 sessions are for the police department, which is consistent with the top paragraph. The 3rd one would potentially be you all.
I think what, unless I'm really misunderstanding it, one says, section 1E1 says about the faculty's rights to intellectual property. That's got nothing to do with anything we're doing here. What I think they're basically saying is we cannot take any of their class material and reproduce it.
Right.
Yeah, that's
If I may, and Commissioner Ross can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the point that Commissioner Ross was identifying was there another internal inconsistency in the agreement beyond the question of E2. But as I've read this agreement, the paragraph at the top of page 2, deliver 3 training sessions covering topics, 2 training for the police department, 1 training for the village staff and commissioners, is consistent throughout with the remainder of the document. C pertains to the police department, the 2 training, and C1, and C2 pertains to the 3rd training, the village commission.
Okay, so I'm going to withdraw my request on E2 because apparently both Attorney Herron and as well as Vice Mayor feel that that's already been covered. So I'm going to withdraw that issue. And if that's in mind, do we have a motion to approve Resolution 2018-31 FIU Consulting Service Agreement?
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
For old business, this is discussion on property located at 26 Northeast 121st Street. I'll keep this brief and consistent. The first thing I wanted to do is talk to the village attorney regarding the discussion on foreclosure, where we are with that, just to get a quick update. And then I'd like to have village manager talk about the condemnation process.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As you indicated, thank you for giving me reminding me. You have noticed maybe my computer open. One of the reasons it is open is because I have received an email from my partner who's indicated to me and given me the information regarding this particular piece of property. He sent it to me after I had asked him and during the course of this meeting. The property is subject to the following. It is subject to a first mortgage that has been assigned to Deutsche Bank Trust Company. It's gone through various iterations. There was initially another one, and now Deutsche Bank. In addition to the mortgage on the property, which, by the way, does have a very specific, it's paragraph 9 of the mortgage, has a, if any actions is taken by anyone to impair the security interest of the mortgage company, then they have the right to accelerate and assert their rights to the extent they are the superior lien. And they are the superior lien at this point. There are two other liens that have priority over that of the village. There is a Miami-Dade County. There's actually two code liens from Miami-Dade County. Not sure why. It doesn't say. So we'll look into that, find out what the underlying violation is. And there's also a City of North Miami water lien, utility lien, which again, under state law would have priority over our interest.
Do you have the amounts
So-
for those liens?
I'm sorry?
The amounts of the mortgage and the amounts of the mortgage?
The City of North Miami one is about 200 and some odd dollars, not a large amount unless it's been accruing interest, which it probably has, but I still don't think it would be that much. I don't have the information on the Miami-Dade ones because you have to find the actual order.
Okay.
And it's not in the title report, it's just the lien.
And the mortgage is, do you know the amount on the mortgage?
180 some odd thousand.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as we find out, I'll send out an email with additional information to each one of them
And
individually.
we also asked, did you find out whether or not there was a letter sent out by our previous attorneys?
I'm not, to the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay.
But we'll send one out to Deutsche Bank. That's the instructions you gave us now that we know who it is.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. And for condemnation, Manager Manners, did you find out the condemnation process, and could you explain that?
I did. I spoke with our building official today regarding that.
We have a new building official, you might want to let everybody know that too.
Yes, it's our new building official with Calvin Giordano. And his response was that he would go out and look at the property, determine if it was structurally sound. At that point, it would be a matter of notifying the owners and presumably the bank and as the primary lien holder as well, with his findings. If he finds the building is structurally unsound, and then it would move forward through that process, ultimately to Miami-Dade County, who would make the final judgment on whether or not the building could be condemned. The cost on that would be around $1,000 to the village. And so.
Okay, and that time frame to, I'm sorry, let me finish if I may, then I'll open it up. The time frame for that is many
He
months?
said it'd be a minimum of 4 months.
Okay.
To work through that process, because after each notification, you have to have a certain amount of response time,
Okay, and then also my last question to you was the cost. Do you have an estimate of cost of tearing down the structure?
around $1,000.
No, to tear down the actual.
Oh, to tear down? I do not have an estimate. I can have a guesstimate, and I would say probably around 2025, but I don't know for sure. I know that in a prior life, I took down a house a couple of years ago in Fort Lauderdale, and it was a single-story house, probably around 2,500 square feet, and had it demolished and removed, and it cost, I want to say, around 15 for that. So I don't know. I presume this house, being two-story, would probably be a little more expensive because it'd just have to be a little more care taken in demolishing it. But that's a guess.
And then I have one final question for the attorney and open up to the floor. Attorney Herron, could you tell me the process usually of a letter of foreclosure and then action on that? And the cost of that as well?
Well, you first asked us to send out the letter, so we'll do that. That's a minimal cost, frankly. The hope is that we get their attention and that's it. But if not, then the foreclosure is, we file a list pendants on the property, and then draft up a foreclosure complaint, notifying and laying out, our interest and identifying all of the other parties that are interested. To the extent that we definitely know that some of them have to have priority, we would have to list that they do have priority, and then begin the foreclosure, file it, and see who responds of the people who we know of, and would send a copy of the lawsuit to them. It would be served upon them. They would have, unless they ask for additional time, just short of a month to respond. And all things being equal, the foreclosure can be as short as 6 months and as long as 6 years. I may be exaggerating the last one there, but some of those have just dragged on. The cost, a no fuss, no muss. My partner told me about between $500 and $7,500.
Thank you. Okay, open the floor for discussion. Thank you. Commissioner Ross, I believe you wanted to start?
I think that it would be prudent to go ahead, and I don't understand why we haven't already been in touch with the mortgage holder, person responsible for the property. But we should write to them and make sure that they, or require that they take care of their collateral, and to the extent that it's a public nuisance or a public safety problem, that they address those concerns. With regard to going down the path of condemning the property and then being responsible for dismantling or demolishing the property, talking about, I mean, it's $1,000 just for the planners to go out, or the planners' staff to go out, and then once that step is taken, then we are required to take the following steps if we say that it is a hazard. So taking on quite a bit of responsibility in that path, I hesitate to do it. And with regard to pursuing a foreclosure action, it seems to me we're going to be footing the bill in order for someone else who has priority over our lien to reap some benefit. So I frankly don't see what the gain is in it for the city to pursue those things. But certainly with regard to the code violations and making sure that the property owner and the mortgage holders fess up, I think that we should pursue that.
I guess I've got a question. The other lien holders that are there, what are we, if we foreclose, are we still responsible for the mortgage and the liens?
Well, I guess hypothetically, you would be responsible for the successor in interest. You know that you're buying a piece of property that has code violations, and you'd wipe out the liens. You'd wipe out the monetary liens in the foreclosure unless someone stepped forward and said, no, we have priority. That's the purpose of foreclosure. But when you get this property through that foreclosure process, yeah, you know you have a problem. Something is going to have to be done with it, which begs the question, is the solution, once you foreclose on it, to demolish it anyway? And if that's the case, you may want to go the unsafe structures route. And Commissioner Ross is absolutely correct. Either way, you're taking on a responsibility here, and ultimately the goal is to take care of a public nuisance. The only other another option that I can think of, and it has been done successfully, it still requires sending out the notices and things of that nature, is to begin a nuisance enforcement action against the property owner. But that's substituting one form of a legal action for another. You're still incurring that expense. The public nuisance one, what you're ultimately seeking is a court injunction, mandatory injunction, asking the court to issue an order telling the property owner or the lien holder, thou shall do so under penalty of the court. And ultimately, I have, I can just, from my experiences, I have done that, and I have brought people before the judge and had the judge tell the person, you clean up your property, and you have 3 weeks or I'm putting you in jail in contempt of court.
And so if we...
Hold on one second. Commissioner Johnson-Sardella and then Commissioner Belt.
I would just have to concur also with Commissioner Ross. I'm very hesitant to put the village in any position where we're incurring any liability. Now, it seems doubtful that Deutsche Bank wouldn't respond, let's say, if we filed a les pendants. But they're the senior lien holder. And if we were to get this property in foreclosure, they're still the senior, which we would be getting the property if they're not wiped out because they're in a senior position. So we would be taking that property still subject.
Unless at the foreclosure proceeding,
Right.
they step forward
That's-
and put in a
yeah.
bid, you know.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
that's basically a
And then, so you
hypothetical that you have that, then you're also taking on a property that you have to deal with, and we're not in the business of keeping properties. I think the more prudent thing to do is really to draft a letter that will kind of point them in the direction of triggering that paragraph 9 in the mortgage, and hopefully Deutsche Bank just steps in and does what it needs to do as a senior lien holder. I think we should exhaust whatever things that don't cause the village to step into any position of being liable for that property. You know, I might entertain the idea of a nuisance litigation, because that seems like that's something that we're not taking the property or anything, it's putting the owner's feet to the fire. But I'm just hesitant to do anything that would put us, the village, in any,
The nuisance would prevent us from taking on that liability, correct, if we went that route?
Well, you ultimately what you're doing is you're obtaining an
An
injunctive
injunction.
order from a court that you then go to the property owner and to the
And the lien holder, or just the property owner? Because
Well-
this property owner has done this apparently more than one property.
Yeah, I don't mean to digress too much, but one of the liens from Miami-Dade County that shows up on this is for another piece of property in unincorporated Miami-Dade County, but under the Chapter 162 lien statute, it applies to all their properties. One of the liens that Miami-Dade County has is actually for this property in the village. I don't know what the underlying violation that they cited them for. I am curious to find out, but clearly the county's not moving forward either to enforce their order, and they do have priority.
Okay.
Ours are literally at the end of the tail of the dog.
So, go ahead.
I
Commissioner.
guess my thought is, let's go ahead with the letter and see what happens from there. That's the first step we're taking. And it's the least expensive step. And we would have to contact them anyway, no matter what else we would do.
We already have that direction.
Okay,
And
let's-
That direction was
Commissioner Ross
last
had
year.
asked what, part of the reason why we haven't sent out the commissioners, because we didn't get the title report until yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
It's taken us 3 weeks to get the foreclosure report.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Just
Vice Mayor?
Just going to add what some of the other commissioners have stated. I think the first course of action is what we have directed before, getting a letter out to the primary lien holder. Unfortunately, this property, which when I first moved here was a visual nuisance, has turned into a real life safety issue in my regard. So I think we should take the first course of action, seeing if we get the benefit that the primary lien holder may decide to move forward. But if not, let's exhaust that step before we go back and then decide what's going to be the next course of action.
as soon as we hear, we'll provide a copy to each one of you individually as it goes out, and then we'll give it 2 weeks to because sometimes what we have for the address and the record is a corporate office that because I've been on the other side where I get called by a bank client saying, oh, code enforcement lien, this is the first we've heard of it, and it's already a lien that's $30,000 because the county or whatever sent it to their mailbox in North Carolina. I was picking on Bank of America because that's the one I remember distinctly. So we will give it some. We have to give it some time for it to work through their system and use our resources to the extent that we have contacts with people at Deutsche Bank. We'll reach out to them and say, hey, you all need to pay attention to this.
And if you could, just so I don't put it as an extra item for next meeting, if you could just update us in your report, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Just one more thing on
yes.
this topic is, I'm getting a little concerned that we're focusing on one property, and there is at least 2 other properties that are in maybe not this state of deterioration, but in similar bad condition with collapsed roofs or that could be a problem. One of them is uninhabited, and I spoke to the manager about it on Friday. We were looking at had that one property, I was asking.
Is this the one on 11th Place, or, okay.
But my concern is that we don't appear like we're targeting one property. We should set a standard and a threshold to say when things elevate to this level, our policy is to pursue this other action. And that way, we can never be pointed at as, being arbitrary of how we're applying things.
I don't think we are being arbitrary in this case. I think everybody in the village, I can't tell you how many comments I get on this particular property, but I do agree with you that there has to be a standard for any structure that is having these types of issues, and if you can be so kind as to send that to the manager, and if you want to bring it back, we can look at those structures as well, or have a policy set forth that we can do this. How would you like to do that?
I think that this board should be setting policy and not instructing on a particular situation.
Okay, but it's been there for 20 years, and frankly, nobody's addressed it, and at this point, somebody had to address it, so I did.
I think that our administration should address it, and we should set the policy to do that.
Didn't we have a recent episode with this property?
Yes.
So that episode, I think, for me, kind of puts this on focus where we need to address this property and address it aggressively.
It added some
and I
urgency
completely
to it,
agree.
yes.
Then we need to basically be moving forward on other properties, but this one, there has been some very concerning issues in my mind that I think that we need to go ahead and get this thing taken care of.
And now that we have a new building official, he's the one that can look at all the properties that we think there's a problem with and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead on to, now we're on new business, which is new website. I want to apologize because apparently an older version got on, so I'd like to make a little correction on my own memo. This has to do with the new website. If you'll notice, I'm referring to new budgets, old budgets. This is because I originally wrote this to go on in September and then ended up not getting on until October. So if you'll ignore those particular sections. The intent here is just to kind of have a discussion. I know we put it in the budget, and I know we're going to move it forward. One of the things that this ties into is the communication piece. I know if you could go ahead and give us an update, because you've given me updates, but if you could give an update where we are with the website and bidding and so forth.
Absolutely. Earlier this year, when Marlon was still the clerk, she and I met with different companies and looked at various companies regarding their capabilities and how to best move forward with a new website. We had pretty much decided on the best way to move forward, and then Marlon left, and I just need to pick this up again and run with it. So.
The issue, one of the things that I brought up was not just having a website and somebody develop it, but the ability for us to maintain it and do it in a way that is, because I know some places, just like our fleet,
Right.
the idea that we don't want to get into the management business, the issue as well with the website is you want to have control enough over your website, but at the same time, some folks have actually outsourced this or given the management side to it to a group. So when you're looking at this, because we have such limited staff, I just want to make sure that if there's a small cost or a nominal cost, to have some assistance so that you're not extending the staff in a direction they can't handle.
Okay, and now when we were looking at this originally, we're looking at a rebuild for the website with the understanding that the clerk would maintain the website and do the updates as what we've currently been doing. It would be a considerably different charge to hire a company, and then, every time we send out an e-blast through the website, or we want to, change out the website, that would be an additional fee, and we're
I'm not looking
budgeted
for the normal day-to-day stuff that the clerk would have to do anyway. I'm not that
Yeah.
you wouldn't love to have less responsibility, but what I'm looking here is that if there's some other issues that are associated with the website, you're changing a page or things like that, where you need to have some sort of a technical expertise, you have that ability, that's all.
That's usually with these websites, like the .govs, you're buying a package, and it's very easy to add a page.
Okay, I just want to
or
make sure,
change-
because
yeah.
I know from having dealt with this with the previous clerks, there was a lot of issues whenever I asked for some basic, simple functions, and they just, it just didn't, either it doesn't exist with this webpage, and I just didn't want that to happen in the future.
Yeah, it's not that it's difficult, it's just a training issue. And
Okay.
so.
Thank you. Commissioner Roth?
And I agree. I think that we're asking our clerk to wear a lot of hats And this, if there's one that we could outsource the higher level of this function and just leave the, immediate day-to-day stuff, that would be plenty to take up her time among all her other duties. So I think we should be looking for what that service would cost us, and we might find that it's reasonable compared to the cost that it's taking out of staff addressing other things.
And training them as well, and then with the turnover as well. So I'm just trying to make it a little more functional for us.
I mean, anything that will, take some work off of Roseanne right now is helpful. So let's take a look at that, definitely.
Thank you. That's all I have. Anybody else? Thank you. I'm sorry, 12B, this is Commissioner Ross's report on the Clean Energy Coastal Corridor, and once again, thank you for bringing this forward, Commissioner Ross.
So the Clean Energy Coastal Corridor had not met for probably over a year, and we had a meeting on September 18th. The meetings are hosted at Bay Harbor Village in their chambers, and for anyone who doesn't know, the board is comprised of myself, along with Jordan Leonard from Bay Harbor Island and Daniel Deutsch from Surfside. This memo takes you a little bit through the history, just to update everyone on how we got involved and where we are now. We are participating, back in July 2014, we voted to participate with the Green Corridor group, which is the group that originated down in Cutler Bay. They were one of the first PACE districts in South Florida. And so that's where we are now. In the next, at the next meeting on November 8th, the board is going to talk some more about whether to stay attached to the Green Corridor or to reestablish ourselves as a separate entity. Part of the reason why that was done had to do with bonding, and the bonds were already approved or certified for the Green Corridor, so rather than waste time, we went ahead and went through their funding channels to get our projects done. But what was encouraging to me was that we have had 64 projects funded in the village for $1 million, $1,621,875 within the jurisdiction of the park. And to me, that's improvements not only for people's properties and homes. A lot of them were new roofs and windows, hurricane impact windows and doors, but it also meant an elevation of those property values, which we know always is good for our revenue. And just to clarify that the administrative expenses of the corridor are absorbed by the corridor group, so this comes at no cost to the village. And I do communicate with the clerk as soon as I know that a meeting is going to happen, so that we get it posted. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to respond.
I just want to thank you for the work on this. It's been most helpful for the residents. Anybody else? Okay. 12C, which is a discussion on the 3-foot spacing extra that was put between the properties. Go ahead.
If I may make a suggestion, if we're going to vote for the manager to be able to make the decision, I would say go ahead with it. If we're actually going to have a discussion about it, making the decision, then it has to be advertised at the next meeting so the actual homeowner can be here and give him his say.
Okay.
So I guess,
well,
I don't know which way anybody would like to go.
I'd like the attorney just to join in very quickly. Is there anything that you have a recommendation on how to proceed on this issue? Because right now they've got a swat of land sitting out there. The grass has been pulled up, and that's where we are right now.
Maybe I missed this, but I thought 12C was going to be the candidate forum discussion.
Right.
Yes.
Not the 3-foot.
Oh.
That was going to be under...
Sorry, I wrote it down wrong. My apologies. Thank you very much. Okay.
Oops, sorry, okay.
Open for discussion.
So, I know Mr. Raymond was here at our last meeting, and he was going to ask, it was his intention to ask for a waiver of the fee so that they could have a candidates forum. We have had candidate forums for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been voting in Biscayne Park since 1987, I think. It's very unusual not to have one. There isn't like a restaurant or a meeting place that can be used for those events here within our jurisdiction, other than properties owned by the village, which is this log cabin and at the rec center. So I think that waiving the fees is a public service. As long as the village is not involved in the setup or in, promoting one candidate over another, I think that it's very appropriate to facilitate that by a fee waiver for residents who want to take the time to present that for the voters.
Commissioner Bill?
Yes, if I remember correctly, some 4 months ago, the village waived the fee for a group to do a visioning thing at the recreation center. And it was actually a group, a whole group of people that got together. We got a response from the Attorney General's office that we have in fact created a committee, and we did not follow any of the rules. We did not advertise, we did not ask for members, and by doing so, we broke the law. And they asked us basically to rescind it. It looks to me like, we're doing the same thing again. I guess my other thought is, there's supposedly 5 candidates, it's $100. I think we should distance ourselves from any of that, and if in fact we do that, they want to do it, it's $100, it's $20 a person.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I understand.
You're not an independent party here, so I don't know if we have to.
So, considering that I'm a candidate in this year's election, I don't. I think I probably should stay out of this conversation. Let y'all arm wrestle amongst yourselves.
Fair enough.
Enjoy the show.
Commissioner Johnson-Sordell.
I mean,
hold on, if I may. If in fact the vice mayor is determining that there is a real or perceived conflict of interest, 2 things will have to occur. One, he will have to fill out the appropriate paperwork with the clerk. And 2, under the Miami-Dade County Commission on Ethics rules that govern all municipalities in Miami-Dade County, unlike the state statute, you will have to vacate the premises while the discussion takes place.
Have a nice break.
So if we recuse ourselves, I can leave?
Not on purpose. And please make sure to follow up with the clerk.
Yeah. And I guess eventually then we would also like your input, what you would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
My first thought is that this is something that I had to do when I was running. It's been going on for years. Even before I ran, I saw the advertisements for Meet the Candidates. With regard to Commissioner Bilt's comment where we waived fees for a group, I don't think this is the same, but I would defer to our attorney to confirm that, but I don't believe it's the same scenario. And with regard to the commission being impartial, again, I agree that we should be impartial, but I'm wondering, I would like to hear from the attorney whether or not us waiving the fee where we waive fees for other things, whether this would rise to the level of creating some sort of color here for us that we should be avoiding.
Mayor, you want to have?
Yeah, I'll add something then you can address.
Before I answer?
Sure.
I'll get all the questions and I'll try and answer them.
Okay. It's been historical that we've always done this, and I really personally don't see an issue as long as all 5 members agree that are running, or all the candidates that are running. The issue I came into is that These individuals don't seem to want to do that. That is their legitimate right as candidates to run their candidates as they see fit. The other issue I have is we're not having, most of the time when we do this, I had the, and I will tell you, it was difficult when they did it, when they asked a lot of questions and a small group of people decided what they wanted to ask. It wasn't independent parties. What I'd like to see in the future is more like a Women's League of Voters or somebody independent who's coming here to meet the candidates. We used to have it, and then it became very polarized in the community, and certain members decided what they wanted to do and what they wanted to ask and how they wanted to ask it. And people who can field questions do very well, and people who cannot don't do as well. And the reality is it doesn't necessarily tell you how a candidate performs. Having said that, I don't object to waiving the fees. My only concern is that the candidates would be agreeing to this in the first place. From what I heard from Mr. Raymond and what was posted regarding the fact that they're not doing it is because they couldn't get the candidates to agree. So the individual who wants to do this, Mr. Jonas, Dr. Jonas, excuse me, I don't know if Dr. Jonas has the candidates' agreement to do this. So having a resident come up and decide they want to waive the fee and they want to conduct it, that's my issue. Do they have all residents agreeing on this? And to me, you'd have to have access to all 5 folks and not defer to one or the other.
I guess
Because then it gives a partiality to that candidate.
one other thing is, every year when we've done it in the previous times, it was an existing committee. It was either the Civic, I think it was usually the Civic Club. It was an existing group.
No, it was usually, I don't think that's the case. I think it was individuals who at the community, some of them were Civic Club members and so forth, but I think it's always been a group of citizens. The issue now for me is I think we're giving preferential treatment to a person, not a committee who did this. And I would like to see it done independently, and I have no objection to it being done if the candidates want it. But once again, the candidates have to want it. And I don't want to give 2 candidates the forum and then waive the fees, and then we're stuck with, 1 or 2 say yes. To me, it has to be a 5. If all 5 say yes, yes, and if not, no. Commissioner Ross.
I don't think that we're giving any candidates the forum. We're giving the forum to a group of residents. And as far as participation, if a majority of them, we have 5 candidates, if a majority of them were to participate, I think that would still serve a benefit to the community.
If I can just say, the fairness of it
I'm
is
sorry,
that-
you're not, I'm sorry, but right now, this is an internal discussion at the moment. Thank you, sir.
I beg your pardon?
This is an internal discussion at the moment. You have to
You're
sit down.
just
Thank you.
talking about me. You don't want to hear anything?
Excuse me.
You just want to talk?
Excuse me, you're not recognized.
I beg your pardon?
You are not recognized. Could you please take a seat? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I won't take a seat, but I won't talk.
In the very short period of time that I have been your village attorney, I have sat here and watched a number of different individuals for a wide variety of reasons ask to use one of your facilities. Generally, I've heard either the recreation center or this facility here. And by and large, those individuals, for whatever reasons they want to use either one of those facilities, have also asked that you waive the fee. To date, I have not heard you all deny anyone's request to waive the fees. It does appear, in my opinion, as your attorney, that there is a custom and usage of allowing your facilities, namely, again, the recreational center in this, for those purposes. With respect to Commissioner Bildt's concern about that we're creating some kind of committee, it's an apples to oranges. It's not. The concern you have, I'm not trying to minimize it, but doesn't apply here based upon all the facts as I know them to be. These are just individuals. They're not necessarily an organization. So it would be my suggestion that you continue to allow, again, everyone I've heard is that you have a relatively, I don't want to say long history, but you do have a history of allowing individuals to sponsor these types of facilities. And in fact, if I remember correctly, one of the individuals running for the commission has already had a function.
Yeah, that was something they paid for, and all of them paid for it together.
I understand, but I thought that there was a waiver of the fee.
No,
No.
there was
Okay,
no
maybe
waiver of
I'm
that
wrong.
fee.
All right, then I do stand corrected. I understand the concern overall, and what my recommendation, my advice to you all is, number one, it's your property, and you have the absolute discretion to ultimately determine how your property is used by third parties. But to the extent that you do so, then you need to have a set of rules and regulations and adhere to them. So if that's what you want to do, we can work, you direct staff to look and do those things. But in the meantime, continue your existing custom and usage until the election cycle has ended and you develop new rules for the future.
But here's my question that I'm going to pose. An individual stands up and says, I want to run a candidates forum, because that's what's happened here without any agreement among the candidates to do so. There's no indication that this individual has agreement from the candidates to run it. And what that ends up doing is it ends up telling the candidates that this person is in charge. And it almost creates, either if it's a one individual or a group of individuals, a committee by that, where the candidates didn't agree to that. And so I think we're speaking for the candidates, and I find that uncomfortable.
But as I understand it, that's how it's happened in the past.
Usually they had a committee, they all met, they agreed that they agreed they were going to do it before coming to ask for the fees to be waived. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is an individual's decided they want to do it, and they're asking to waive the fees without an agreement with the candidates.
But I haven't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard where there was that in every instance before, there was an agreement of all the candidates. The candidates are free to attend whatever function they want. If a group of individuals or an individual is coming to you and say, I would like to organize that, that's that individual's prerogative, as well as, let me make it absolutely clear, the prerogative of each individual candidate to say yes or no to that. And so, no, I don't mean to criticize, potentially egg on the people, on the face of the people who organize it, no one shows up. But that's. But
then what happens if, and this is what I want to make sure election-wise we're okay on. If we do it and then one candidate shows up, one candidate gets the forum, and that's then recorded and published in our facility.
You're not doing it.
So we're not doing it, we're just waiving the fee.
Okay, let's make it absolutely clear, the commission is not sponsoring, the commission is not advocating. You're providing a facility that you historically have provided to other individuals to put on these forums. The commission is not advocating for any individual at all, one versus another. It is up to the individual candidates to then determine whether or not they so desire to actually attend those candidate forums, one or multiples.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with doing this until the candidates have some indication that they want to do it, so they're not strong on to doing something, because I think that's how this is being run. I'm not comfortable with it. Not that I'm not comfortable waiving the fees. I'm happy to waive the fees if they come back here and have the candidates say they're going to participate.
We've in the past, has always been, all candidates go. No?
No.
And so,
There have been times when all candidates didn't show.
but there was always a committee in which the candidates they were talking with the candidates. Somebody didn't just show up at a meeting and say, I want to run it, so I'm going to. And that's what's happening here.
I'm certainly not trying to be argumentative, but I've heard that there are a group of two and another individual. Whether or not you consider two or more a committee or not, that's...
This is one individual. The other two committees announced that they were not running it. So this is one individual. That's not what it was represented, but that is what is being published, that they're not doing it.
So, again, you know, I try purposely not necessarily get into the level of detail. It's right now what you have is one individual asking to sponsor, create, host, organize whatever a candidates forum. No one else is asked to do so.
The only way I'm comfortable moving with this is that if any candidates and all candidates want any event at any time between now and the election, then we waive all fees. That's the only way I'm comfortable doing this.
That's your prerogative. That's the commission's prerogative to do so. But you know, you have one individual, or as I understand it, who's asking to use your facilities that you historically have allowed to be used in the past.
it's like I understand wanting to be balanced, but I am hearing what the attorney says, and we've done it in the past, and where we've waived fees. We've waived fees for people that come in front. I don't think us waiving the fee, I think we're meshing things together. Us waiving a fee doesn't cause us to sponsor something. And again, if, let's say, no candidates show up, then I guess nothing happens. And either the event doesn't happen.
I, from here until now, have no problem, and I'm gonna make a motion, because I'm permitted to do that. I'm gonna make a motion that any and all candidates who wish to use our facilities, rec center and/or log cabin with their availability, all fees be waived until such time we can come up with a policy that will set this on some normal path.
And to the extent that the second is made and there's a vote, that's perfectly okay, Mayor, but it doesn't address this individual's request.
Yes, it does, because that means if he has a date that he wants to do it, he can come forward with a
You
date.
mentioned candidate, that any candidate, he's not a candidate that I'm aware of.
So, that's true. So any, yeah, that's not going to work. I'm sorry, I'm uncomfortable with it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm happy to waive fees for all the candidates on anything that they'd like to come forth and bring forth. I'm not happy to have individuals in the community.
If I can make a comment?
Please.
I was the last one to run, and I went through the same sort of thing where they wanted this, and the way it was presented to me was, well, if you don't show up, nobody's going to vote for you. And eventually what happened was, there were 3 candidates, 1 candidate dropped out of the race, and the two of us decided on we thought was a much better way of doing it, and that's what we did.
They did a meet and greet.
We did a meet and greet for 2 hours. We paid ourselves. People were able to come over and ask each one of us a question separately, hear what we had to say, and we could not hear what the other one had to say. And if somebody was interested in one thing, they would ask me one thing. They could ask the other candidate something else. I just didn't, and I'm not comfortable with giving somebody the fee and having only one person show up and letting him be here and having the village involved in it. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
That's my thought.
let's start back up. So I'm rescinding my motion. Is there a motion to approve for Dr. Jonas to waive the fees for a community forum for a date set prior to the election?
I will make a motion that fees be waived for the log cabin or the recreation center for any resident or group of residents who are willing to sponsor and coordinate an event for the candidates, that at least 3 candidates respond and agree to participate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay.
Opposed.
I will make a new motion. Same motion I said I just did, except at least 4 candidates would have to participate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Then
Pass 3-1.
All right. Can we get Commissioner Tudor in?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
He's gone.
Correct. 4 or more.
retroactively. We'd have to say retroactive, right?
I don't think we can go backwards. There was an event already held where the candidates all attended. Can we at this point, I think it would that would complicate the heck out of their finances. Let's not go backwards.
In the past, it's the past.
In the past, okay. Okay. That's 12C. Requests for placements on the agenda? Any? None?
No. We now still have the
We're going to that here. That's going to be here. We're getting to it.
after placements on the agenda. I thought
We're on
placements was
13.
last.
Warrant 13, request for placement items on next meeting's agenda.
But to the extent that we don't get definitive answers on the issues I brought up early in the meeting, then I'm going to want to move those for agenda items next month.
Okay, thank you. Reports of village attorney?
All right. First, I'm going to plead ignorance because the discussion about the trees and the setbacks is new to me. Until I heard it this evening, I did not know that this was out there as an issue or concern to the community. But to the issue that I have been asked, that I can answer you is, again, with respect to the last item I talked about, it's your property, okay? You all have the ability and the authority to determine what happens and what takes place on your property. Under Florida law, just because someone enters into an agreement, has some type of consent, or for that matter, without any agreement and without any consent, puts something on your property does not give that individual any rights.
Just to back up, there's nothing being put on that individual's property. It's just, okay.
I'm just talking in general, okay? And the one that I have seen and dealt with the most often, just by way of example, is the swale area. Someone puts something in the swale. They put up, what is it? The traveling gnome. You have it's in your right of way, in your swale. You have the absolute right to remove it. No one acquires any interest in your property just by virtue of them putting something there. There is no such thing as adverse possession against local governments.
But that's not what's happening.
But correct. So with that said, the question was asked, well, is there any rights? The answer to that is no. Okay.
Please allow the attorney to finish.
How do we resolve it? How do we do it? I need to get better acquainted with the facts and the issues and give me an opportunity to understand, because while I've listened to it, and as well as you all have, I don't have as much familiarity with the issue as you all, because it's the first I've heard. Let me get up to speed, and I will report back to you at the next meeting or prior to then through individual emails.
Okay, and I do have one question regarding this. The issue is, I just want to affirm, the village manager has the decision in this issue unless we determine he does not, correct? I don't understand why this isn't, I don't understand why this is coming up to commission. We're policy setters. We don't say where bushes are planted.
That is correct. You all, you have the ability to direct your staff to take any action that is not inconsistent or otherwise contrary to state law or your village code. If you want to do something or direct your manager to implement something that is not provided for, then the condition proceeding is, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney, Madam Clerk, revise an ordinance, bring an ordinance, or whatever the case may be, to allow you to accommodate that desire. But in the absence of anything specifically out there that may exist, or if it does exist, yes, it is your manager who is responsible for administering the day-to-day functions within the village, consistent with your direction that's given to him, establishing policy, mainly through your ordinance, your code of ordinances, and the resolutions and votes that you take that are not.
I just want to make sure we're not trying to, because, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
So the unique situation here is that we had a vacant field next to this residential site.
Owned by the village.
Owned by the village.
Okay.
And the village put a building on that vacant field, which has a different use than the residential use. And I haven't read it myself, but I am told that the county code requires a buffer between those different uses.
Correct.
And the landscaping the whole purpose for the landscaping is to create that buffer for the residential, to shield them from the more intense use of the next lot. And so Mr. Keyes' concern, as I understand them, is we're purposely installing this buffer to protect the next property owner, and this initial installation may set the boundaries going forward of what we can or cannot do with that strip of land.
I have a disagreement with that. I really strongly do, because I read all the code, and my issue, I read the Miami-Dade code that they're quoting to do this, and all it says, and I went over this with Mr. Keyes for quite a while today, all it says is that you have to have trees within a certain amount of time that grows to a certain height that separates the use. It has zero conversation regarding how close that is. The only thing is, within a year, it has to be a certain height, it has some dimensions about separation, but none of it has to do with the distance to that property, just that it has to create that boundary between the two. So there's nothing in it that says whether it's 3 feet, 6 feet, 2 feet, 1 inch. It doesn't talk about where you make the plantings. It does not.
Madam Mayor, we're getting beyond ourselves. The discussion should be at the moment is, do we believe our city manager should be able to make this decision himself or not? Or does the commission want to decide all of a sudden, without knowing the facts, we want to make the decision? If we want to make a decision ourselves, we have to postpone it so the homeowner is here. So we either let our manager, who's hired to do this, who has, I believe, had discussions with everybody about it, let him decide, or we have to bring it to the next meeting.
So do you have a motion?
I make a motion that we allow our city manager to make these decisions that he's hired to do.
Is your second? I'll second it.
I don't even know if we need a...
Do we need a motion for that?
for him to do his
Do we need
job.
or do we just need a consensus?
I mean, do we have a consensus? This is the village manager's decision and we're micromanaging the heck out of this? Yes or no?
You know, let me...
Well,
Do we need to postpone this?
If I may, Madam Mayor and members, after hearing some of the additional information, actually, I think that it seems the issue is the interpretation of what does the county code say as it relates to a buffer requirement.
Okay, can we take a 5-minute recess and you can read it?
Well, no. I mean, my point is, you all just engaged a new planner. That's the responsibility of the planner.
I'm sorry, but this, in my opinion, has gone way out of range. I've read the code. I'm sorry, but I feel completely comfortable because I spent the time reading it. But I'm not the attorney. I'm not the planner. Are we going to hold up on doing this for another month by the time we get a planner to do it, pay a planner to do this? I'm sorry. I think we're micromanaging this and we're overthinking it. Manager, you want to make a comment? Because you know the most about this, please.
Yes. So, okay, this came about with Parks and Parkway. We had the meeting, we planned to do this strip, which the homeowner specifically requested to provide the buffer. The homeowner himself would have preferred that it be 20 feet into our property or up against our sidewalk. I didn't agree with that and told him no, and I met with Parks and Parkways, and I was like, let's just get it, put it on the property line. We went out, we put the flags in and all of that. The homeowner came to me late last week and just said, hey, can you at least leave me enough space that I can get between the plantings and the wall to maintain my wall? I said, okay, 3 feet. I moved a flower bed 3 feet. That's what this is all about. I did not make any agreements or recommendations, no I didn't, that, either implied, verbally, and certainly not written, that we were giving up this property. There is a strip of grass between what will be our planting and this residence wall, which our public works guys can run a mower down really easily to maintain it, and that's it.
Okay.
Can I make a quick comment?
Please.
I think this whole discussion, I agree with Commissioner Bill, we kind of really went off the rails on this. The real question for the village attorney that I would have is simply this 3-foot by 100 and some odd feet strip of village property. By us having that there, do we suddenly lose our legal right to that property? Can a homeowner now come over there and take that property? I would argue, my personal opinion, no. If we have Public Works going out, tending to the plantings, tending to the area there, it's not a forfeiture of that property.
The email, on the email, the chair of the board stated that the concern was by allowing the plants to be moved back 3 feet, somehow or other, we lost the use of the land. And he asked for a legal conclusion on that issue.
And
I
that
don't,
that was the question I believed I was originally asked to respond to.
Yes.
No,
thank you.
No.
So no.
no, it's your property.
Okay.
Is the hedge not
Excuse me,
separating
excuse me.
one use from
Excuse
another?
me.
Everyone.
Excuse
It's the
me.
village's property.
Yeah.
No one's using it.
Yes, the chair
No one
is.
gets it. That's it. It's the village's property. There's
You know what, this may settle some people's concerns. I know there's I forgot the term, adverse
Adverse possession does not apply.
Doesn't apply.
Can you please explain how that actually kicks in? Because I think that's what people are
Ad-
thinking, and this
No,
is
it's
not
not
the case.
people,
I
it's
already
just one
said-
person.
Everyone, please listen. Adverse possession does not apply to government property. No private property owner can acquire an interest in a governmental piece of property through adverse possession.
Done.
It's black letter Florida law.
Okay, so we can, excuse me, can we,
If that's the question I'm being asked, that's my answer.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so-
All right. So moving forward, do we all concur that the manager we allow the manager to do what he sees appropriate in this case?
Yes.
Yes?
Of course. She said yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay, done.
I think that as a courtesy to the people who serve on this committee and on other committees, we should approach these situations a little differently. And yes, it's within the manager's prerogative to do, but it is disrespectful of the process that they went through, and it's frankly discouraging for anyone who wants to participate on that level.
Sorry, I have to. I completely appreciate and am in extreme gratitude to the volunteer nature of our residents who serve on these boards. However, there are, these boards are advisory in nature. They're here to give the commission some guidance, but ultimately when it comes to a situation like this, we have a manager in place for that. What I don't think we need to do as a commission is come before us and have to go out there and decide where every single planting is going to be or where every little thing is. It's to bring to the commission from an advisory standpoint, this is what we're bringing to you, this is what we can do, this is what we recommend should be done, but the implementation of that should
Be with the manager.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
No, I would agree. A recommendation is a recommendation. I'm not trying to take anything away from the board, but it's, what this sounds like to me is that the manager just looked at this and made a concession to be a courtesy to a resident. I think that he took the advice and then he made an adjustment, which he's entitled to do based on trying to strike a compromise. Without more information, that's what I see this as being.
Thank you. With that in mind, attorney, is there anything else in your,
No, ma'am.
thank you.
I'm sorry for if I got a little.
No.
No, it's okay. Welcome to the village.
No, we need
We need that every now and then. Village manager.
Sure. Commissioner Ross had a number of questions that she wanted answered, and we'll start with the FEMA one. Where are we with our FEMA reimbursement? We're still going back and forth with FEMA. We received just another email today, which I forwarded to FEMA, from BCP Body. FEMA is questioning BCP Body's billings on some things, and so we're going back and forth on that. We're continuing to move forward. It's just taking a while. And so,
Are you aware of any other cities that have been?
I'm sure there are other cities that are starting to get money, and we should hopefully be moving forward on this as well. Another delay was that on our first sub-agreement, We had two contractors. One was ICS Materials that did a repair to the fence at the rec center. And we required an original signature from them to submit the sub-agreement. We've not been able to obtain that. And so they've not responded to any of our requests for that. I've talked with FEMA, and we're trying to work it out so that we can move that forward without that. It's for a couple $1,000s. It's not, it's not a life-changing amount, but it's still some money that we'd like to get back. And so.
Thank you.
What is the name of that company?
ICS.
Was the contractor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Election notice. You had a question about that, Commissioner Ross?
Yes, I've seen other cities advertising their election, and I had not seen one for us. As I came in this evening, I spoke to Roseanne, and she told me she was working out the details and coming to a decision, I think, for this Sunday.
She and I reviewed that today, and so we're going to try and get it in the neighbors section this Sunday, I believe, so that will run. The newsletter is currently still with ESA. And we were waiting on commissioners, but I think at this point we're just going to go ahead and move ahead with it because I think that's probably the way that we can best get it out at this point. The FRS audit.
I'm sorry, just on the newsletter, primarily my concern was that we haven't published a newsletter in maybe 3 years, and publishing a newsletter where a candidate could have a forum to promote, I thought would have been an issue. So just for you to have an FYI, that's my concern.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, Florida law prohibits the using government resources for electioneering. So I would, to the extent that anyone would ask me, I would say that that's not an appropriate use of village resources. Put it lightly.
Thank you. FRS?
The FRS audit. And Paul, can you address that? I know we're moving, or we've had some movement on that this week, I believe. But
yes, as the commission may recall, the FRS requirements, as we adjust them, are only open during a payroll adjustment.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait. That's fine.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You may recall I reported, I think, I lost track of the number of meetings a month or two ago, that the FRS audit required the changes that we found to be entered in only in a payroll application monthly. That's being done, and the last month is, for the fiscal year, is October 4th, actually. It's a little bit after things take place. That will be the last submittal that will complete it. And we've entered that will finalize their report, and we'll be able to produce that back to FRS. And it's also going to be entered into your draft audit as such as complete.
Commissioner Ross.
Is there any financial impact? Are we still obligated to FRS in this current fiscal for past?
I don't believe the change was a large magnitude. I don't have the number in front of me, so I can't speak to it specifically, but I never got a sense that it was a substantive change that would affect too much. But I'll get that back to feed it to you through the manager.
If you could feed to all of us, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll let Christian be in charge of that.
Okay.
If he doesn't mind.
I don't mind a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the CIT guidelines. We discussed that on Friday at our one-on-one, Commissioner Ross. And we will be having another meeting before 11/1. We know that. And so we can get that addressed then. Regarding the shade meeting, you had mentioned that again on Friday. I knew that, speaking with our attorney, that he was going to be flying in this afternoon. It would be a tight fit, so we didn't try to schedule one before this meeting. If the commission is available when we schedule the next meeting that we know is going to happen this month, it'd be great if we could do a shade meeting prior to that, just to get an update on the litigation and the painters union contract.
Let me jump in. I apologize because as soon as the manager mentioned it, I had made a mental note to make a comment, and I appreciate the opportunity. There are, Commissioner Ross asked for two separate potential shade meetings, one to discuss the status of the contract with the
Painters Union.
Painters Union. I have seen some very minimal communication between the manager and the union reps about what may be, and I think that, as if I recall correctly, that communication was directed to the union saying, hey, here's our response to these issues, give us a concrete proposal. So none exists, it hasn't been received. So I don't know if there would be necessarily a benefit to having a shade meeting on the union issue, because generally you have those to actually make a presentation as to what it is that the union is asking for. And I'm not, I don't want to speak for the manager, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
We're actually pretty close to that, and so I need to catch you up on that one.
Okay.
So.
Well, then, and we certainly can do that. The other type of, and there's a separate statutory process for noticing those. With respect to the litigation, I'm assuming we're talking about, very briefly, and I'm not going to go into great detail, the matters that are being that outside counsel is representing us because of the League of Cities. I would encourage, and I've spoken to several of you about it, and I will call you, Commissioner Ross, in the next 24 to 48 hours to update you, but I would say essentially, for brevity's sake, the same about the union matter about this. It's premature, and I'll explain to you why.
Thank you. Anything else, Manager Manners?
There's one more thing.
What was the one more thing?
Along with my question on the FRS,
Mhm.
I brought to your attention that the GMS Service Agreement, Resolution 2017-51, the agreement on its face terminates on November 6, 2018, and it has two options to renew for an additional one-year term. I asked if you had spoken to Mr. Winklejohn about it, and being that we're in the middle of or entering into another audit now, it seems like we may not want to have a disruption of those things going forward. So we should bring forward some kind of resolution, or at least some kind of a decision to trigger that renewal for the next year.
And that will be on the next commission meeting as well.
Okay,
And so,
we keep talking about this special commission meeting. I think we should say something about what the special commission meeting is about.
oh, absolutely. We can talk about that. There was an error in the ad for the budget, and we have been contacted by the Department of Revenue, and so we need to redo that. They'll be following up with us with specific instructions on how to correct that error. And
You're waiting for them to get back to you, though, before you could schedule,
we are
correct?
currently, yes.
Okay, is there any cost to the village?
I'm sorry?
Is there any cost to this?
There will be the cost of re-advertising, and GMS has offered to pick that up.
Since it was zero. Thank you, and thank you for picking up that fee. So there's essentially cost neutral. There is no cost to the residents. Correct? Thank you, sir.
Well, there is going to be a cost because our attorneys will be here, and
Yes, but I mean...
Correct, but the
primary
advertising cost is being absorbed.
I mean, I'm here after hours, you're paying me anyway, so...
And we have several things that have to go on that special meeting, so we were going to have the special meeting, not just because of that, but we're using that for the date, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So, Village Attorney, did you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I wanted to very briefly say that, so everyone has the comfort level, is that the issue is with the ad that said that we were having a hearing and then the budget number on second reading or on that date. I want to say second reading. That's my point, which is we have confirmed with the Department of Revenue that the notice for the actual ordinances that were adopted, setting the millage and adopting the budget, were properly advertised, properly set. And so you do have a properly adopted and set millage, and you have a properly adopted budget. The ad or the incorrect ad only has an incidental effect on the village, which is that you won't have the benefit of the difference between your rollback rate and your higher number until you have that corrective hearing. We will prepare a resolution that ratifies the actions that took place last Tuesday, and that's what the Department of Revenue said that we need to do. And that would correct those problems. And they've also indicated that by the time that we have that hearing, or that meeting, and turn the paperwork, the correct paperwork around, there probably won't be any holdback at all. So.
Thank you. Manager Manners, anything else on that?
Sure, and then finally, we have our draft of the 2017 audit. It's not quite ready yet. We've got one thing I need to speak with the attorney about tonight after the meeting, and just get verification on that, and once that's done,
3.
we should have this tomorrow.
So we'll be up to date finally, yes?
Well, for a minute, 2018, is coming up quickly,
Yeah,
so
but we're actually going to be on time for our next one.
we'll be early
Correct?
on 2018.
Right? Okay, thank you. All right, super. Thank you very much for all your hard work, both of you, and please thank everybody at GMS as well, and as well as the firm that's doing our audit. Thank you. Okay, board reports and meetings. Any board members want to do reports and meetings? None? Okay. Commissioner comments? Are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Bill?
Yeah, yesterday while waiting for the traffic light on 6th Avenue, I was sitting there and I was looking at our bus bench that's on the east side of 6th. And I thought about it, I said, wait a second, we have a bus bench that's there that doesn't have any concrete under it and doesn't go to City Hall. We should have a sidewalk that goes from City Hall to the bus bench. People leave, they want to take the bus. Now they have a bus bench there, we can put some concrete under it, and possibly we may be able to also put a canopy over that one, a canopy over the other one, if in fact FDOT approves. However, this would now mean that we have everything that the county wants for putting a crosswalk in. We have a sidewalk on one side with the bench, we have a sidewalk on the other side of the bench. We have CITT transportation funds that we have to spend. This is for bus benches, which is part of transportation.
That would be transit.
Excuse me, the transit, which I think will work. I spoke to our manager. He said he'll check on it to see whether it would work or not. Since there's no property owners that are involved, because it's us, I don't think we'll complain about us putting a sidewalk in.
You never know.
But we know, well, that's true. We may complain about putting our old sidewalk in, and it'll give us the opportunity to set an example of what we would like. That was my thought. I don't know what anybody else would think about it.
Could you bring
As I said, this came up yesterday. It wasn't like this is something I've been working on. I sat there at the traffic light and I looked.
Very good.
Yeah.
Can you bring it back for the next meeting as well with some more definitives, or the staff can?
Sure. Staff can.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Comments? No? Okay, announcements? Village clerk? Actually, I'm sorry, may I just want to do a quick shout out, if I may, to all the police officers who came and got up at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to do the Run Fun Walk. I so appreciate that everybody came. I know we didn't have the turnout we were wishing for because we got rained out, but I do want to just shout out to all staff, ISA, the park staff, as well as all the officers who came out and got me exercising for the first time in a while. So thank you very much. All right, that's all. Announcements. Thank you.
All right. First, I apologize. The announcements is a little bit different of the agenda because there are some changes after that. But Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, 6:30 p.m. we have Planning and Zone Advisory Board. Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, 6 p.m., we have Public Art Advisory Board that before was on October 10th. Tuesday, October 9, 2018, 7 p.m., we have Biscayne Park Foundation. Thursday, October 11, 2018, 7 p.m., Code Compliance Board. It was originally on the 3rd, if I'm not sure. Monday, October 15, 2018, 6:30 p.m., Planning and Zoning Advisory Board. Thursday, October 18, 2018, 7 p.m., Parks and Parkway Advisory Board. And Wednesday, October 24, 2018, 7 p.m., Public Safety Advisory Board. Monday, October 8, 2018, all village departments will be closed for Columbus Day. And our next commission meeting is, regular commission meeting is scheduled for November 8, 2018, 7 p.m.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Meeting adjourned. All those in favor? And then some